It's sunny and 75 in Raleigh today. Perfect weather for college baseball. We have a Big South ACC Tango here at Doak Field at Dale Park. The Longwood Lancers up in Farmville, Virginia come to town against top 25 NC State. Alongside Sean Adler, I'm Evan Budrovich. Two teams that can really swing the bats offensively. We'll start with NC State. Peyton Green, the all-conference shortstop, he hit 3 home runs last weekend.
Yeah, 3 home runs, and might I also add, that's half the amount of home runs so far this year that he's had last year. His growth from last year to this year in terms of seeing the ball, being able to make solid contact has been pretty good to see so far.
Top 5 in batting average, RBI, steals, doing everything well for Elliot Avon's club. And today we're featuring shortstops, very kind in this open. Gregory Ryan for Longwood hitting .367, showing some pop for the Lancers.
Yeah, and I think given the conditions, we have a little bit of a jet stream today. Wall's been lowered since last season. It really could be anyone's ball game with the amount of bats that solid bats that we have in kind of both lineups. So it'll be interesting to see what happens today.
Chad Oxendine said Greg Ryan is the best player on Longwood's roster, a first-year transfer. An order a little different today. The top 3 the same, but Elliot Dix, all-conference hitter in the Big South, .407 the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, you tend to normally see your best bats kind of in the 3 to 4 hole, but like I said earlier, this is kind of the time during midweeks that you want to try and mix around the lineup, see what works, see what sticks, see what doesn't work.
So NC State will bring to the mound P.J. Labriola, who's getting ready to go. A Clemson transfer. His numbers against Coastal Carolina last week, 3 2/3 innings, roughed up in the hit department, but they like his potential on the mound.
Yeah, and I think one of the things I really like about him is he's a strike thrower, throws tons of strikes. I think going down, to Coastal, it almost inflates your numbers a little bit just because the ballpark, but he throws a lot of strikes.
Myrtle Beach real estate will inflate your numbers, if you know what I'm saying. Prime area. Now back in Raleigh, Longwood at NC State. As Labriola misses outside to Quincy Scipio, who gets the leadoff spot. Quincy's hitting .158. This is his 6th start. Longwood replaced its entire outfield from last season. What must Labriola do today, Sean, to be comfortable and work deep into this game?
Well, given that your midweeks traditionally, now it could be different today, but traditionally you might have 3, 4, 5 guys coming out there. You want to be able to get through that lineup 1.5 times. That's all you really need as a starter to kind of bridge that gap into your bullpen. So try and get through that with as minimal amount of damage as possible, and that's what's going to really help this team be able to kind of go the distance today.
Scipio drives the 2-1 to right. And there's Trevor Candelaria for the first out. Only one change defensively for NC State today. Noah Souls gets the start in left. Carter Trice not in the order. And Eli Serrano, the talented freshman, over at first base. We saw Eli blast his first home run on Sunday, and there was a lot of potential there for the true freshman at Fuquay Arena.
I mean, such a big kid too, and given that he's a freshman, he's got so much, more work to do as well, just from college lifting standpoint, seeing the ball on a college level field. I mean, with the amount of damage he can do against the opposition so far, it'll be awesome to see his growth kind of coming on into this year.
Elliot Dix, the third baseman, now drives one out to short over the glove of Wilson. And the hottest hitter in the Big South, 12 hits for Elliot Dix. He has a 1-out single. Chad Oxendine saying this Longwood club, while they have 10 home runs, they're not a power-hitting team. He wants them to be an on-base, bunt, situational baseball. We see that early from Elliot Dix.
Yeah, I mean, and that's okay too. That's going to work. That's going to be effective as long as you can capitalize on it. We saw, this past weekend series against Belmont. Belmont was able to manufacture most of those runs playing situational baseball offense.
Another line drive here. Greg Ryan shoots one to right. Nice catch by Candelaria. That is a loud second out. The wind is blowing out. The ball's being hit hard against NC State.
Not only the wind is playing a factor, but you've seen, this lineup has been able to kind of hit early and count. So, I mean, you really want to be selective in the strikes that you throw. It's not just good enough to kind of throw a strike. You want to make sure you're really hitting your spots and trying to force weaker contact.
2 outs for Tanner Thomas, who slides up to the 4 spot. This is his first game in the cleanup. Labriola mixes in a strike. Longwood is coming off a series win over Delaware State, where the Lancers scored 25 runs. So that's about 8 runs a night. The changeup gets him there. Good luck hitting that pitch if you're an opposing batter.
Yeah, we've seen so far that the changeup's been really, over the past few games with NC State's pitching staff, that's what's been really, helping their pitching staff and being able to get a lot of swing and miss, is mixing that fastball with the changeup.
And NC State's rotation, 4th in the country in ERA. I know it's 2 weeks in, but that is certainly a growth from one season to the next.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and it's just good to see that if you're the coaching staff at NC State, you want to be able to have a pitching staff that, I don't care if it's early in the year, you can go out and trust them.
Good take by Tanner Thomas.
Good take. Also really good just blocking by Kozart behind the dish. You have runner on first base. It's 2 outs, so you don't know if that runner's going to score, but you want to make sure you keep that ball in front of you. Try and reduce any sort of extra base usage.
The 1-2. Again, Kozart firm behind the plate. Longwood team that has been aggressive on the bases, 11 for 12 in steals. The Lancers were 2nd in the Big South behind Campbell in stolen bases. They're not afraid to run. There's Labriola, again fouled off. Thomas is a true freshman out of Lynchburg, Virginia. And Coach Oxendine had a conversation this fall and said, hey, Tanner, you've played well enough in the fall and spring. We're going to put you in the middle of the order. You get a start game 1. He opened his career with a run scored. He's still been quiet in the hit department, but settling in. Runner takes off, and an easy ground ball to LaJames Groover, who ends the first inning. NC State's prolific offense comes to the plate when we return here on a picture-perfect Tuesday in Raleigh. Are you not just blown away by the weather today in Raleigh? What a picture-perfect day. I mean, 75, sunny, good baseball weather. And Longwood takes the 2-hour trek down from Farmville, Virginia. New arm, Dylan Saley, who struggled in his first outing against Virginia, gave up 13 hits last Tuesday. And now Chad Oxendine leaning on the junior to step up and recover in his second out.
Yeah, I mean, definitely got roughed up last week, but it's early in the season, so if he can make it through, the lineup maybe twice, 1 or 2 times, with minimal damage, that'll give him the confidence to kind of go out in his next appearance and feel good about his ability to execute.
Facing an NC State order that has hit everyone hard, Noah Souls hitting leadoff, and then Peyton Graham, we talked about him in the open, a .481 average. 3 players in this offense have 10 RBI in 7 games.
Yeah, I mean, I think that really speaks to their ability to kind of extend that bat all over the strike zone. If their pitcher wants to be really, if Saley wants to be really effective today, he's going to have to make smart pitches in terms of throwing on the black, kind of around the strike zone, which is going to be hard to go up against NC State's offense that can hit those pitches as well.
Noah Souls gets the start in left. He'll lead off. Take the first pitch. Souls at a .357 average. Able to lay off.
And it doesn't seem like Saley's really going to be that overpowering type of pitcher, but you can see, those first 2 fastballs, a lot of late life on that. So if he can kind of work in and out on that batter, he's going to be really effective.
Noah Souls in this NC State order have crushed every team the last couple of days. Souls trying to snap an 0 for 5 slump, a mini slump at the plate. And the changeup gets him. Good pitch from Dylan Saley. I don't know if this is a 2023 trend, but the use of the changeup has been so much more prevalent in college baseball.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, I think that's one of the best pitches. If you're a pitcher and you can incorporate a changeup into your repertoire, it really looks the same as your fastball. The difference is going to be that velocity that really throws batters off.
There's Elliott Avent. We found him in the back of the dugout. A 7-0 start, second straight year with at least 7 wins as Green chops one off his foot. Avent's team searching for win 970 in his tenure. And he said this week, hey, 7-0 is great, but we got to get ready for Miami next weekend when conference play begins.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a really good opportunity. You know, if they end up throwing some new faces into the lineup or into the defense today, it'll tell you, who you can also use against Miami or the rest of conference play as well. I mean, you're really going to have your core lineup and your pitching staff that's going to be your core team, but who can you also interject kind of in crucial situations?
This ball skips away from McLeod, but nobody on. Remember, 8 teams in the ACC are ranked in the latest D1 baseball poll. That's more than half the league, including the first 3 opponents in conference for NC State.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if it stayed that way a good number of the season. Just shows the depth.
Another nice changeup. So Saley with back-to-back punch-outs. And Sean, you're a pitcher. Speak to this. The bounce back from a tough outing against Virginia to looking really good through 1 inning.
Yeah, gives you a lot of confidence. I mean, not only does it give you that from a mental standpoint, but really if you're able to kind of feel that confidence and lock it in from, in between the ears, it really does translate to what you can do physically in terms of executing your pitches.
2 outs for Gino Groover.
It also helps that these first 2 outs were strikeouts. He's been able to kind of execute and hit his spots with his fastball and with his changeup. Might I also add, he was the first 2 batters, he got 0-2, 1-2 right off the bat. Didn't have to work from behind.
He's worked ahead all day, and this is a Longwood pitching staff that's been up and down early in the season. ERA at 8.8. Now that gets ballooned in the first 2 weeks. As Groover pops one to center, that drops down. And the first hit for NC State. Gino Groover with his 7th hit of the season.
And that's why he's such a good hitter, too. I mean, I know everyone talks about how good he is, defensively, and his bat is still really good. But what really makes, his hitting approach so solid is that he doesn't always have to square that ball up. He's able to kind of take that ball that is running in on him and get his hands out enough where it actually gets right over the middle infielder.
That's hits in 4 of the last 5 games for Groover. And it sets the stage for Carter Trice, who slides into the DH spot today. He wasted no time in the Belmont series. Crucial home run on Saturday. It's his 2nd of the year. Part of an offense for NC State. 14 home runs, which is top 10 in the country. What if I told you if Wake Forest already has 25 home runs as an offense, 8 games into the season?
That doesn't totally surprise me. I know they have a really, really healthy and deep lineup. The field kind of like, down in Conway, you're going to have that field that plays more to the offensive side of baseball, but still a lot of deep batters in that lineup.
Adam Searcy has 7 home runs. That ball smacks off the foot of Trice. And for a hitter who had 15 home runs last year, Trice chokes up like he's hitting with 2 outs, 2 strikes. It's a unique approach.
A lot of batters, normally won't choke up until they get to 2 strikes and then they have to hit more defensively because they want to be short to the baseball. But there is some advantage in having that, in any count. It just allows you to stay short to the ball so you can kind of hit all different parts of the strike zone. Exhibit A, the 1-2's left up. The wind is playing a factor, and Carter Trice has left the building. A 2-strike home run to make it 2-0. Yeah, I mean, kind of left that ball over the plate, and that's where choking up really helps you kind of take advantage of something like that. It'll be interesting to see here, though, what happens with Saley. I mean, he was able to kind of get ahead with a lot of these batters, gives up a big hit. Will he respond in one way or the other? We talked about choking up, and how about that swing? 375 plus. This might be a tough day for pitchers if the ball's flying that far out of the park. That cleared the entire bullpen in left field. And I know the wind is playing a factor into this jet stream, but I'd like to think, too, if you're not having anything blow out to left field, that was strong enough where it was at least going to get over the outfield wall. So
Here's a line drive again by Candelaria Fair, and a chance for two. Back-to-back strikeouts followed by a single, a home run, and a double for this prolific NC State order.
I think you've seen so far with both starting pitchers their ability to command the strike, or not command the strike zone, but throw a lot of pitches in the strike zone. Now it's really about commanding that strike zone. You want to make sure you're hitting your spots correctly.
It's such a mental game, right? Because you give up the home run, you want to throw strikes, and then State's aggressive and hit strikes right away.
Absolutely. And I think when the home run happened,
this might stay in the park. All of a sudden, a long run, Dolberry, and that ball's out of here. Extra power from Cozart. That's his second home run of the year.
That's some big time power too. I mean, you had kind of ball straight away to kind of left center. I mean, that's some serious power to go kind of 400 plus feet. And that didn't just scrape the wall. That was a really good shot. Kind of ball kind of middle away, which he recognized the spin and the movement on Saley's ball.
Looks like the dugout knew it for NC State.
Absolute no doubter.
And then that ball kept carrying, and Michael Dolberry had no chance. Well, this might be an offensive type of day today. Worth noting, the wind is blowing out today here at Doak Field at Dale Park, which could really play a factor. Eli Serrano swings for the fences there.
And here's another guy you really want to be careful of when you're pitching to. He's not only is he kind of on a small hot streak right now with his home run recently this past weekend, but he's also such a big guy that he commands so much of that plate.
He has an Eric Hosmer type body frame. We measure him at 6'5", and he looks more like 6'7" in the plate. Long arms. That wind blowing out, it could really play a factor.
If I'm Longwood's coaching staff, though, especially their pitching staff, the one thing I do like to see is that Saley is coming out throwing strikes. He gave up 2 big hits, but you see a lot of pitchers struggle to kind of get the ball in the zone after a big hit, where he's actually throwing a lot of strikes still.
As the count works full, Saley was cruising 2 strikeouts in 9 pitches. And all of a sudden, Groover gets the hit, and the offense keeps churning.
I think it's the time that he gave up those hits was really almost deflating sometimes. You know, you get 2 quick outs, and then you try to get that last one, and then this happens.
That'll stay foul. Good hands by Brett Austin over at first base. One of the all-time greats here at NC State, behind the plate and as a hitter. So we'll try it again on 3-2. Another changeup that's stayed in play, and Tanner Thomas has it. Not before NC State. 2 home runs, Carter Trice and Jacob Cozart send us to the second, and what could be an offensive day. 4-0 Wolfpack early.
That escalated quick.
Was that crazy? Like, I thought that was a pop fly, didn't you? We found the TrackMan numbers from Jacob Cozart's home run last inning. 39-degree launch angle. That's too high to go 400 feet.
Yeah, usually with a launch angle like of that degree, you're thinking that's more so of kind of just a routine fly ball. But I mean, Cozart, he's a strong kid, which people don't, take into consideration always. He's 6'3", he's got to be close to 200 pounds. So
it leads to a 4-0 lead for NC State as Jim White late on the breaking ball. White gets the start at DH. He has 1 hit this year, just limited action, 3 at-bats.
If I'm Labriola and I saw what happened last half inning with Saley out there, you really want to be kind of hitting your spots low in the zone. Once you get that ball up, if it's in the strike zone, I mean, there's enough going on in the air right now where even routine fly balls could be questionable.
Longwood graduated its all-conference DH, Hunter Gillum, 13 home runs. So here's young Jim White, just a junior, looking to fill those shoes. He has 3 years of eligibility due to COVID. And he rolls to the left side. There's LeJames Groover. And that's exactly what P.J. Labriola wants, ground balls, weak contact.
As a pitcher, I'd love to have a third baseman like Groover. And I mean, not a lot of people, kind of just average baseball fans, really see this, but his ability to get rid of the ball so quick, I mean, that wasn't a totally hard hit ground ball. It was an easy hop for him to get. But, I mean, that runner's kind of booking it. Having a third baseman that can kind of get rid of that ball really quick, that as a pitcher, I really appreciate stuff like that.
Well, James Groover is the 8th ranked third baseman in the MLB draft class, according to D1 Baseball. Braden Taylor of TCU, he's the prohibitive favorite, a top 5 pick. But here's Groover with projections top 100, top 75 overall. And what a big jump, too, from a great year at Charlotte as a freshman. He comes to the ACC the last 2 years and has built his draft stock here in Raleigh.
Absolutely, but not just from the offensive standpoint, but his ability to kind of be plugged in anywhere. I know he played third base primarily, a little bit of first base last year, but they put him in the outfield. His versatility is really helping MLB scouts see kind of where they could actually see him fitting into an MLB club.
As Hayden Harris hits with 1 out. Groover was the former first baseman and said, hey, coach, my best level of draftability is playing where you need me. And Ellie David said, well, we need you at third. We need to move Green to short. So both a team player and a draft-oriented player. And all he's done is shine defensively. We've seen the talent. Golden Spikes Award watch list player. All of a sudden, that left side of the infield for NC State looks really good.
And you'll see him, too, kind of during BP when he's out in the field. He's getting his kind of fungo reps at third base, but he's also going to different parts of the field and trying to get ball reads, just because could be a mid-game that something happens and they need to put him in somewhere else.
You see those aviators, by the way? It's a heck of a day for sunglasses here in Raleigh. Rocking some fashion on the left side of the infield. Now the right side gets some airtime. And there's the right fielder, Candelaria, to make the catch.
It's a good play right there. I mean, kind of a soft hit fly ball, but that's kind of no man's lane where communication really needs to happen if you want to make it's an easy fly ball to catch, but it could easily be dropped or just let go if you're not communicating with your infielders.
So look how far that Eli Serrano runs.
A little bit easier of Candelaria to make coming in instead of with Serrano going away.
That wind is really pushing the ball out to the outfield today as Ethan Barnes, the left fielder, takes a strike. This Longwood team has 30 upperclassmen, but there is a mix of youth. Barnes, one of the freshmen, one of 8 freshmen for Longwood. And Chad Oxendine noted, the Longwood head coach, the portal has both made us older but also brand new. We've had to revamp our lineup. 3 starters lost from last year, having to build quickly in Farmville.
It's like I've always said, I mean, you see schools every single year the past couple years now, they've lost, players just because players want to go elsewhere for whatever reason, but you can gain players through the portal just as easy as you can lose them. So that ability to rebuild, especially with experienced guys, makes it a little bit easier.
Count evens as Labriola is 1 pitch away from the 2nd inning. Keep in mind he gave up 5 hits in 3 innings down in Conway against Coastal Carolina.
And also, if you're Labriola and you saw what happened last half inning, you want to make sure after 2 outs you can get that 3rd out.
This ground ball might end the inning. Instead, it sneaks through. Good base hit by Barnes with 2 outs. Longwood has shown this offense is not going to go down easily. Another ball put in play. 0 strikeouts today.
They've shown that they're willing to be aggressive early in those counts too. They want to be able, traditionally now I know Labriola the past 2 batters has worked backwards, but he was throwing first pitch strike fastballs those first 4 or 5 batters. So I think they recognize that and they want to take advantage of seeing something they can handle.
This is Corbin McLeod, the catcher for Longwood. Typically, Draven Kowalski is the catcher behind the plate who rocks a fantastic beard. Reminds me of our director, Lucas Raycraft. So McLeod gets the start today. 10 RBI last year as a rotating catcher behind the plate.
And this will be good for him, too. He really needs to get some reps just because I've always said, too, you got to have multiple catchers on that roster when you guys are playing a 56 or 57 game regular season.
2 starts for McLeod behind the dish. Good breaking ball for a strike.
He hasn't been getting a whole lot of swing and miss on that breaking ball. It's really just been kind of looking strikes because he's been able to start that in the other batter's box and it kind of breaks right over the outside edge of home plate.
Labriola was a former spot reliever and situational lefty. Now he turns into a midweek starter and a possible long reliever, which is a totally different mindset as a pitcher.
Yeah, and I think, with his past experience at Clemson and his ability to show that he can be a situational guy, I don't know if the coaching staff is necessarily questioning what he can do out of the bullpen. I think this is a really good opportunity for him to prove, hey, I can go multiple innings, maybe a couple times through the lineup.
His career long in innings was last week, 3 1/3. So he'll look to extend through 2 scoreless. And he does with a breaking ball. First strikeout for P.J. Labriola. And we go to the bottom of the second here in Raleigh. Flying in Raleigh in a 2-home run first inning for NC State. There's Carter Trice hitting it out of the bullpen, and then this shot 400 feet to dead center.
Yeah, I think both batters were able to recognize kind of that fastball that had run. They were able to see it where it wasn't initially a strike, and it kind of broke over the plate, and they were able to capitalize it because that fastball was elevated, and they're strong enough, ball players where they can do a lot of damage right there.
And Parker Nolan led NC State in home runs entering today before Peyton Green took the honors. Nolan has moved into the 4th different spot in the order. He's hit all up and down this lineup for NC State, coming in with a .318 average.
And that's good to know from a coaching staff perspective too, because just like we were talking about Groover and being able to put him in different spots defensively, the same rule really applies in your offense. Sometimes different batters in different parts of the lineup, their responsibility is going to be different based on where they are.
Where do you think's the best spot for Nolan? If you're Coach Sean Adler, where do you like to put him in the order?
I want to put him as probably the first. I would say the first 4 spots of the lineup or 9th.
As he rips the 2-1 in the left field. proving you right with a hard hit single.
And a lot of people, they would say, why does he think he needs to be in the ninth hole? But that's almost like a second leadoff spot in some ways. I mean, once you go through the lineup in your offense, when your leadoff batter gets on, and if no one's already able to get on, that gives you an extra potential run that you could be scoring.
And Tony La Russa with the Cardinals invented this theory, hitting his pitcher eighth, hitting a traditional 8-hole hitter ninth. It opens up the order for an offense.
Yeah, gives you a bunch of different options in what you can do.
So Kalai Harrison, who's typically a bunter, move runners over, more situational hitter, hits out of the 9 spot today.
I also think, if you're looking at it from a pitcher's perspective, pitchers naturally tend to probably throw a little bit more fastball heavy to the bottom half of the lineup. But if the bottom half of the lineup is really, really good in terms of hitting for average and making solid contact, it forces the pitcher really to have to think a little bit more on how they want to execute against these batters.
Remember, Dylan Saley had 2 strikeouts to start this game. He's given up 5 hits since. What's the adjustment if you're the Longwood midweek start?
I think what you want to do is, that fastball's got a lot of run. And I think that it's probably best to know where that needs to be in certain counts. So what I mean by that is you want to make sure you're starting that fastball outside of the strike zone and let it break in just kind of right on the edges rather than leaving it over the plate.
Good block by McLeod behind the dish.
That, along with mixing in your alternative pitchers, your breaking ball, your changeup. But I think with that fastball, which you saw both those home runs were via fastball, you want to make sure that you're not allowing that fastball to run back into over the strike zone.
Harrison takes the 2-2. This is the 5th outing for Saley against ACC competition. It has not gone well in the previous 4.
So right now, I'd like to see, knowing his fastball runs, you really want to start that at Harrison's elbow, and when it breaks, it'll be just on the inside part of the plate. Not really right over the heart of home plate, but right on the inside. Give that umpire the opportunity to ring it.
More attention to first base with Nolan. A more aggressive NC State team running the bases than in years past. 8 for 9 in the first 2 weeks. Runner breaks, and there's ball 4. So 2 on, nobody out.
What we've seen a lot, too, is NC State's lineup hasn't necessarily had to have manufactured their runs by stolen bases. Their lineup is hit from top to bottom, so that's how they've been manufacturing these runs. They've just been being able to move over their runners via hits.
Back to the top of the order, and we're only in the 2nd inning. Noah Souls was a utility outfielder last year. He's become a full-time starter and thrived at the top of Elliott Avon's order.
And out of the hits that he has this year, half of them have been extra base hits. So you don't even necessarily have to do something from a situational perspective. What I mean by that is you don't have to bunt. I don't know if you really want your runners scoring.
Is this a game, given the score, you want to exhibit those plays and try it out, quote unquote?
In that perspective, that's exactly what you want to do. But in terms of just, you don't have to do that in order to manufacture runs. It would be solely just from the perspective of getting more reps in and seeing what you can do on a situational side of baseball.
It's a 2-0 count as Saley looks to navigate a tight zone. There's nowhere to put Souls here with a dangerous Peyton Green behind him. You can tell Saley's a little shaken in his 2nd straight ACC start. Virginia last week, now against NC State. And that'll load the bases. Chad Oxendine noted he wanted 6 or 7 arms to pitch today. That 2nd or 3rd arm might have to get rolling a little faster as Brad Mincy, the pitching coach, heads out.
And I know they mentioned what they envision is it is going to be a staff day, just based off of coach's preference. But I haven't seen anyone getting loose in the bullpen. I don't know if anyone's kind of moving around behind the wall, the portion of the wall we can't see. But I mean, they're definitely riding with Saley right now. I think they want him to finish this inning too. Brad
Mincy was the pitching coach at North Carolina Central before the program was shut down 2 years ago. He produced 3 straight all-conference pitchers of the year. Really good developer of arms over in Durham. And now he's back here in Raleigh, just a couple miles across 40, depending how fast you drive. That drive from Central to Raleigh is probably, what, 20 minutes, 25 minutes?
Yeah, it's right off.
Maybe not at 5 o'clock on a Friday.
It's like a mile and a half off of 147. So if you're taking 40, you get on 147. It's you're right there.
Setting up a bases loaded, nobody out situation for a man who already has a grand slam this year, Peyton Green. And the outfield's playing about as deep as you can here at Doak Field at Dale Park. They know the power that Green exhibits. And struggling to throw strikes.
Yeah, I think where you saw the first 2/3 of the first inning, you had Saley be able to go 0-2-1-2 the first 3 or 4 batters. It's been kind of a different dynamic, especially since those 2 big home runs had happened, where he's now kind of behind. You see him go 2-0.
Now the 2-0 pitch. And line through the left side. That'll score 2. Peyton Green with his first hit of the day. NC State has 6 hits. And he is safe at second. So make it 6-0.
Yeah, I mean, 2-0 count. The pitcher's been struggling a little bit as of late to throw strikes. What you're really looking for with that count is you're looking for a fastball over the plate, but it has to be your pitch. It has to be the right pitch because obviously you don't want to give the pitcher a strike. So that's exactly what happened with Green. He saw that fastball over the plate and was able to take it to the left side of the infield.
That was a well-placed ball right past Gregory Ryan. So now if you're Longwood, how do you prevent this game from getting out of hand? Bases loaded, nobody out in the second.
You know, I think Saley needs to try and force ground ball action, especially when you have runners on. You can get kind of a 2-bagger on that, try and, get a double play. It will cost you a run, but if you want to be as minimized as possible, that's probably the best way. Weak contact, it really starts with effectively throwing that fastball and mixing in that off-speed.
Gino Groover broke this game open in the first. A single started a 6-hit run in the last 2 innings. And now he pokes one to left. Whoa, that falls down for a base hit. Harrison scores, and the wind is playing tricks on the outfielders today. It's 7-0.
And too, that's something that it's unfortunate, but I don't know if I necessarily disagree with that approach because that ball's kind of coming in at a lower angle. So if you dive for that ball and it gets past you, that's going to the wall. That's going to be extra runs scored. So
you deke the runners, correct?
Yeah.
Ethan Barnes had to make that split-second decision.
If that ball is kind of coming down more straight down on the outfielder, you want to go after that because if you don't catch it, it's not going to go that far past you.
That's a healthy swing from Carter Trice, who already has a home run today. It's his 3rd of the season, 20th in the last 2 years. There is a ton of power in Elliott Avon's order.
And I think, too, as you see this game progress, you already know what NC State's offense can do, but you really want to see a response out of Longwood. You don't want to allow a 7-run lead to defeat you. You want to have that mentality that you're in this game.
Gregory Ryan helps the cause with a tiptoeing catch. Even there, the wind pushed the ball back 5 or 6 feet.
Plays a huge factor. I would say that's just as dangerous when you're dealing with a fly ball in the infield, just like you are in the outfield.
We told you it's the first day the Doak stream, as it's called here in Raleigh, can really play a factor. I don't know if it stops those 2 home runs, but it's affected the most recent fly ball, the line drive to left. It can do some things to the balls in the air.
And it's all those smaller differences that add up, and it'll make a big impact depending on what happens the rest of the inning.
Candelaria tests the wind. Let's watch this ball float around. Thomas hangs on. Every play's an adventure. Hold on. That's the last thing you want to do is throw the ball away here. I will say if you're Elliott Avon, 2 runners on, nobody out, and back-to-back pop-ups, that's not a productive inning at the plate.
No, I mean, you want to kind of keep that momentum going. You want to be able to manufacture as much as you possibly can from a run standpoint. The further you can kind of stack on run, help, the more assurance you're going to have, and it's going to be harder for the opposition to come back.
Jacob Cozart hit that second of 2 home runs today. Think about that. 4 home runs all of last season, already 2 in the first 3 weeks.
Yeah, kind of like what I mentioned with Green is they're basically halfway to what they were as of a total last year.
This ball will drift out of play over the student section.
And I think, 4 home runs, that's not as much as some of the other guys in their offense last year. But, I mean, you also have to realize Cozart was a freshman. You don't really see that much. Stuff with, like, Tommy White, that's a rare anomaly. Most of the stuff you'll see with Cozart
How
is
about
pretty
this
normal.
ball to left field? Caught at the wall. Ethan Barnes making the adjustment, and that might have saved the game for Longwood.
Yeah, he was able to track that all the way. I think that turf warning track helps him give him a little bit more confidence.
7-0 NC State through 2. Back to Raleigh, 7th ever meeting, Longwood and NC State. The Wolfpack are up by 7. And now for Chad Oxendine, this offense has got to find production. He's a former catcher at Coastal Carolina. He's neighbors with Griff Aldridge, the head men's basketball coach up in Farmville, Virginia. They're gearing up for the Big South tournament and looking to rebuild his former program. He was an assistant at Longwood in 15 and now back as the head coach for his 2nd year.
What I like to see, too, is that, he's a catcher. I've always thought that what really helps and something that really helps to become a head coach is being a catcher when you play.
And he was an all-conference catcher at Coastal Carolina. So there's a strike to Michael Dolberry.
I think as a catcher, you're able to see the game through a bunch of different lenses, but, in terms of management preparation, I think being a catcher really gives you that extra advantage in terms of managing a team.
Here's a bunt attempt that goes foul. Longwood's knocking on the door for success. Last year, they were 1 game out of qualifying for the Big South tournament. And the tough news is the tournament goes from 6 making it to only 4 this year. Campbell, the preseason favorites, Upstate, a quality program. And now Longwood wants to join that party as the 3rd or 4th team.
Well, I think what helps, too, with Longwood is that aside from Campbell, who, they've established themselves as the top team in that conference, everything else is up to grabs. It's up for grabs. It could be anyone's tournament to make. Which makes it actually really good in Longwood's situation right here.
Let's go, 2, here we go. Jump zone, jump back.
Labriola goes to the breaking ball, and that's chopped foul.
And I like the fact that they were trying to bunt early in this count. You realize that you haven't had a whole lot of success trying to get on base just via hits because Labriola has been able to manufacture outs. Can you force them to play their position now?
There's the 39th pitch. And another battle here. Dolberry's been a tough out. Last year, he was more prone to the strikeout. 62 Ks. That was a team best. This year, being able to battle and stay alive. And there's the strikeout. Good use of the breaking ball, the tag for the first out. How was Labriola pitched better this week than what we saw against Coastal?
Absolutely. I think he's effectively out of the strike zone too. You see that strikeout right there with the breaking ball. It was nowhere near the strike zone. It maybe started like lower part of the strike zone, but definitely broke over the plate or on the plate, like literally in terms of vertical elevation wise. That's the exact type of location you want with a 0-2-1-2 type of count that he was in.
Quincy Scipio in the top of this order watches a strike.
And right there, like I'm okay with that breaking ball. That's an 0-0 count. You want to kind of flip one in there to show him something. As you get into more of an advantage count.
This ball may test the wind. Serrano lost his hat, hangs on to the baseball for the second out. He's got that wild thing look right now. I love it.
The sunglasses helping him be able to track that thing too, because we don't have a cloud in the sky either.
The aviators, the long hair. A true 18-year-old freshman coming to play.
But kind of like what I was mentioning, there's a right time to throw that breaking ball in the dirt, which that 2 at-bats ago he did that with that strikeout. The first pitch in the last at-bat was the right time to throw that over the plate.
Elliott Dix fights off the first pitch. And Longwood, conversely, could not throw first pitch strikes. NC State's living in the zone early in the count.
Yeah, which you would be surprised what the difference is in a batter's batting average, 0-2 versus or 0-1 versus 1-0.
Dix had a single earlier today, one of 2 hits for Longwood. He's 5th in the Big South in batting average, top 5 in on base, top 5 in hits. A preseason all-conference player. That ball's touched out of play.
And I think what helps here too is not saying that Labriola wasn't going to the breaking ball his first time through the lineup, but he was really getting guys out on fastball, changeup, and mixing that in and out. But now you incorporate that breaking ball more heavily into these at bats, and it.
As Dix floats one to right. There's NC State to make the catch. A quick inning for Labriola. 2 hits allowed and 3 scoreless as his Wolfpack go back to the plate when we return. NC State hitting with a 7-0 lead over Longwood. Gearing up for the start of ACC play. Look at the latest rankings in D1 baseball. A boatload of teams, 8 in the conference. NC State heads to Miami next week for conference play. There are good opponents up and down the Atlantic and the coast.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the Miami series is going to be a really interesting series just because you have 2 very, very similar teams. And I don't necessarily mean from a rankings perspective, but what I really mean is they both bring the same kind of assets to the table. Both a historically really good pitching team, loaded offense. So you're going to see a lot of good baseball, I think, in the next couple weeks for that conference series.
Conference play begins in a week and a half, which is so close. Good job by Saley to cover his position for the first out. Pitchers are athletes too, Sean.
He made a good play. He kind of moved away, kind of going backwards from the mound. That's not necessarily an easy
No, that's where you say as a former pitcher. Of course pitchers are athletes.
Of course,
we can make plays. Yeah, there you go.
We can make plays, but if you're breaking down that play, that's a high hit ground ball with someone that's relatively fast. You got to get rid of that ball quick. So overall agility, I give Saley a good grade on that.
I appreciate the humility and the coverage of the sport itself alongside former USC and NC State pitcher Sean Adler. I'm Evan Budrovich, former junior college football outside linebacker. You probably didn't know that or need to know that, but I had my 1 year, and I said, let's go to college. Let's get a real degree and get this thing moving. As Parker Nolan hits with 1 out in the 3rd. He has such a quiet stance at the plate, but so powerful when he puts the ball in play. Hit a single basically to the wall in left field his first time up, and it hopped twice.
It is such a quiet stance, but if you look at his hands on his batting stance, it's really kind of close to the core of his body. And I think that really helps, you know, it lends itself to just being quick to the baseball where you can kind of command that bat all over the strike zone.
He came in from day 1 and started on a multi-game hit streak for NC State. Now he's reached base in every game, all 8. Another hard hit ball that just goes foul.
Interesting fact, I can't fully remember, but I honestly believe that Vanderbilt has a Parker Nolan as well. That is one of their better hitters, which if your name was John Smith, that makes sense since that's a popular name. But Parker Nolan, I feel like you don't tend to see that a whole lot.
You are correct. Parker Nolan's a senior infielder for Vanderbilt.
There we go.
Out of Knoxville. I don't know how many other Parker Nolans are in college baseball.
Yeah, it's not an unusual name. I just don't think it's extremely popular.
Boy, this one hits the ball hard. Another base hit for Nolan. 2 hits for the NC State transfer out of Davidson.
You just look at the versatility of this lineup from top to bottom. They can put the ball in the air and do damage. They can hit the ball hard on the ground and do damage. You know, you talk about what's the approach against this lineup. There's very, very little ability to kind of capitalize and shut them down 1 through 9.
Now Dylan Saley faces the 9-hole hitter, Kalai Harrison. And you mentioned the value of a 9-hole hitter flipping the lineup. Harrison gets on base. Let's see, 48% of the time. That's pretty effective in the 9 spot.
Regardless of if you get on via hits or just walks, if you can get on.
Well, now he ropes one to right center. This ball's got some legs, and it one-hops the wall. Rounding 3rd, Nolan turning on the Jets. And it's 8-0 NC State on the double by Harrison.
That's a great piece of running, too, by Nolan right there. I mean, that's a first base to home plate. I mean, he was thinking for the entire way.
Little juice from Harrison on that swing.
Good pissy hitting. He just sees that fastball over the plate. A little bit low, but definitely over the plate. Something that he can handle. Did some damage right there.
So 8 runs, 9 hits for NC State. Here's Noah Souls in the top of the order. How about the running here?
And I mean, Nolan's got speed, but you know, you have to have that mentality right out of the box. Not out of the box, but right from your stance at first base that I'm thinking multiple bags, maybe even home plate.
So when you see that ball hit to the outfield, you're immediately thinking scoring. Then.
Yeah, because you see the outfielder early in that play, he's not able to get that, so you want to try and take advantage of that as much as you can.
Nolan scored all the way from first, and now Noah Souls with the man in scoring position.
And I mean, even if center field actually catches that, it's probably a dive. He's got to get up and throw it all the way back to first base for him to actually get Parker Nolan out there.
This was the challenge for Longwood coming in. 2 games against ACC foes. 10-0, a loss to North Carolina. 26-2 against Virginia.
I'm thinking fastball right here if I'm the batter.
There's the running fastball, and it's a walk. Chad Oxendine even noted he wants to figure out who of his guys he can trust, who wants to compete, who is ready for this challenge against upper competition.
Absolutely, and you know, it's not always just from a physical standpoint and what you can do in terms of, you know, your ability on the field. You want to show your coaching staff that you're in this game mentally and physically from innings 1 to 9. Not being able to give up, not being able to throw in the towel.
Because Chad Oxendine noted, as Peyton Green steps in, they have to get ready for Gardner Webb and USC Upstate and Campbell, who's been a regional team. It's not just good opponents today, it's the rest of the league schedule, too.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
As Green rolls one foul. Those boos are from the third base coach, Chris Hart, not making the scoop on the ball. It's not booing a foul ball, just to be clear.
Well, I think he's since he's been over there for years, he's made some really good plays. So I think the expectation now is that he's an absolute magnet.
And he's basically standing blind to the hitter at the plate as he watches the runner. That's not a fun place to be as a third base coach.
I've seen in my tenure there, he's had a lot of hard hit balls right around him as well.
There's Chris Hart, 19th year at NC State. Ground ball to Ryan, there's one. And the turn from Hayden Harris to end the inning. Longwood a much needed double play. It's 8-0 NC State as we go to the fourth.
Right back in here. That ball's flat.
Clint Chrysler, the pitching coach for NC State, he must be marveled at some of these numbers. Top 5 in ERA, WHIP, and team shutouts. The strikeout to walk ratio is pretty efficient too. The staff has pitched really well in 23.
They essentially have top 10 rankings for most of these pitching, statistics right here. I think that's necessary because you go into conference play. The ACC is not just a select, pitching conference. They can hit, in terms of what other teams in the ACC can do. You need to go in and you need to be able to execute your pitches when you go into conference play in the ACC.
A conference that has one of the better ERAs in the country. SEC, ACC, always good pitching. Chad Oxendine is about to make a couple of substitutions. And we told him pregame, hey, you have the wind jacket, you have the long sleeve, you sure you're going to be okay temperature-wise? He said, yeah, no, I'll be good. I like it. As a former catcher, he's wearing that towel to stay dry. And Devin Colon, the true freshman from Staten Island, steps in.
Come on, Dad. Come on, Dad.
Off the end of his bat, little excuse me ground ball to another freshman. And Serrano wins the foot race.
That's always kind of that's never a routine ground ball right there. It's kind of more towards Serrano at first base, but definitely kind of an in-between. You have Labriola breaking off to see if he needs to cover. That's kind of the stuff that you work on in practice on communication with your first baseman.
When you check into a game as a hitter, do you want to swing right away? What's that mentality like?
Well, you don't know how many opportunities you'll get that game. I'd like to see pitches, but if you have something good enough in the zone, you have to at least, if you're going to swing early, you have to at least get a good piece.
And you want to make it count as Tanner Thomas steps in. He grounds the second pitch over to second base and 2 quick outs. Remember on Sunday, Eli Serrano checked in. First pitch he saw was a home run towards the video board and right.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't even always have to be that. He got a good piece of the baseball on it. I'd like to see a hard hit ball. If you're going to swing early in the count after checking in, you really want to be able to actually see if you can do something effectively. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a home run, but at least get a good piece of the bat on it.
Jim White hits with 2 outs. Oh, my goodness. Pitch Ninja's going to have fun with that one.
That is some really good bite onto that breaker right there, too. And that's not something that you could really even square up, because that's crossing the plate. That's going batter's box to batter's box.
Over the head of the pitch here. Held on. It's a smart decision by Peyton Green.
Yeah, tough play. I'm okay with that. You don't want to create something out of nothing. I mean,
the probability of making that play is like less than 1%.
Absolutely. And then you try to make that play, and sometimes it doesn't necessarily happen. More times than not, it'll probably end up resulting in an error, which would give the runner an extra base.
Especially in an 8-0 game. Good job keeping it in the pocket.
Kind of just cut your losses.
It's a base hit for Jim White. And here's Hayden Harris. Labriella's throwing a ton of strikes today. 3 2/3, only 3 hits, and he's been in the zone all day.
Yeah, and he's been able to do that with multiple pitches. He's actually kind of gone away a little bit from the changeup. I'd like to see him kind of incorporate that. Line
to second to end the inning. NC State cruising here in the 3rd week of the season. We'll have more on both these clubs when we return. An 8-0 game here in Longwood. 3 weeks into the regular season, new rules in terms of pitch clock and timing. The games have sped up a ton. Outside of 1 3-hour game, look at the first 8 games. Very efficient time of pace.
Yeah, you don't tend to see that normally. At least historically, you don't see games normally go sub 3 hours. I think this is definitely a correlation with the new rules implemented.
Those new rules include a pitch clock, including how many times you can step out of the box, elements of the game that have made it, even in high-scoring games, more entertaining and more consumable for the viewer.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you have the opposition, you have the naysayers that say, well, you're cutting out a certain amount of baseball. What you're actually doing is you're kind of trimming the fat that's not baseball. You're trimming, what players are doing in between pitches, kind of stuff like that.
We have seen a few times the ball and strike added based on delays from the pitcher and batter. I saw a video on social media this week. Pedro Baez of the Dodgers. It took him 1.5 minutes to throw 1 pitch in a playoff game. They did a whole spring training half inning in the same amount of time. That's incredible stuff.
I think if I am siding with kind of the more traditionalist, pitchers, because I was a pitcher, they're very much of the routine. They kind of like to take their time. Sometimes that goes into helping them kind of get prepared for the next pitch. So I think, when you have these new rule changes, there's kind of pros about it, but some actually have a good argument with why it's not necessarily the best thing. But it's all about managing kind of the balance and trying to find the right balance and implementing and cementing those rules.
New pitcher for Longwood with a first-team all-conference name. Dallas Harefield comes in, rocking the long locks. It's a great head of hair. I'm jealous.
With a name like that, you have to have long hair.
Dallas enjoys fishing. He's from Mechanicsville, Virginia, just across the state to Farmville, Virginia, the nearby home of the Appomattox State Courthouse, just outside of Farmville, and a great restaurant, Fish and Pig, if you've ever been there. It's really worth your time. As Groover swings over a filthy-looking slider for strike 1. Not sure if it's a 3/4 fastball, if it's a slider, but it looks really good.
So the success right there was, starting that fastball over the plate and kind of it cut almost to the outside of the plate, where with Saley, he was doing that a little bit, but there were times that it was breaking over the plate. So with Groover, you're going to want to be soft away. He can do a lot of damage to both parts of the field, but where he really does damage and capitalizes is if that ball is kind of more middle in. He can take it to the left side of the field and make it hurt the most there.
Groover lays off on a changeup. 2 singles for Gino Groover today. It's only his second multi-hit game of the year, which 8 games in seems surprising for how good of a hitter he was last year, nearly a 360 average. One thing we've noticed early, the patience and the discipline is carried over from one year to the next.
You also have, though, low strikeout numbers so far this year with Groover. I mean, he's been able to put the ball in play. So, not many multi-hit games, but he's been able to, force contact a lot.
Ripped foul.
See a lot of hard hit balls with him.
Golden Spikes preseason watch list, one of the top 50 players entering the year in college baseball. That'll put you in All-American conversation when we get to May and June. And Groover off the end of his bat flips a base hit to left. So that's a 3-hit day in 4 innings for LeJames Groover.
And he's another guy too. First week and a half of the season, you didn't see a whole lot of extra base hits or even base hits, and now he's kind of in his groove. He's starting to, get hit after hit, and that's given him a lot of confidence too, and making him more of a threat at the plate.
As a hitter, when you're reaching out for a ball and flipping singles to left, that must be so debilitating for a pitcher.
Yeah, absolutely. That's happened to me, and it's like, you know that you executed and made a great pitch, but that's just a really good piece of hitting right there.
So Carter Trice makes his way back in. Good looking pitches. I know the team's down 8-0 if you're Longwood, but not missing by much in the zone today.
Absolutely. From a mentality standpoint, that's what you want if you're the pitching coach. If you're Mincy, you want to be able to have a pitcher that's competing regardless of what the score is.
Steve Sanders working behind the plate today.
Hey, zone him up.
By the way, that secondary logo is the L for Longwood, part of their rebranding on the hats, on the gloves. About 3 years ago, went through a brand new redesign of the Athletics logo. It looks sharp.
Keep that nose on him now.
Longwood's in the midst of a $100 million basketball renovation. Brand new gym being set to open next fall for the reigning Big South men's basketball champions of Longwood, and the women's team both won titles.
What I like so far right now with Harefield, he's just staying low in the zone. He's getting a lot of swing and miss, which is good. They're not really able to time it up or square it up, so he's keeping guys off balance so far.
Now a 3-1 pitch. It is tough. You throw 3 pitches you think are strikes, and they're not, and then you throw 2 out of the zone, and it's a walk.
Yeah, no, I think he's been competitive around the zone. His misses, aside from those big, misses to the glove side, have not been big. They've been really minor misses. NC State is just such an extremely plate disciplined offense that you're not going to get a whole lot of, guys swinging outside the strike zone. So that's where it's going to be even more difficult with this lineup.
8 runs, 10 hits, and we're in the 4th inning. Put that into context as Matt Hefner comes in to run. So Gino Groover's day could be over quickly. Now Trevor Candelaria works ahead of the count. This will be expected the next few innings. Both teams will empty the bench. We'll see some new faces, including Cologne now at short, Wilkinson at second for Longwood. Ooh, that hit the catcher, the umpire, the bat. Hopefully everyone's okay.
I can't really tell, but does Harefield have his pitching wristband on the belt,
the
belt loop? I think that's, I haven't seen that yet.
Chad Oxendine, a huge fan of the PitchCom system. First year Longwood's implemented it. It's really sped up the pace of play. And he's a new school head coach. He said, hey, as a former catcher, I want the signs quickly. I'm going to work with my pitcher and build that dynamic to get to the plate.
Absolutely. You know, I think it's good to hear from a coach that is pro this way of calling pitches too, because a lot of guys, they're kind of more old school. You have longer, you know, older head coaches that they want kind of the older way of calling pitching.
That is called outside. Good miss from Harefield, who gave up 5 runs against Virginia just last week. Longwood starts the year with back-to-back Tuesday, Wednesday games. A lot of midweek games early, have a lighter schedule on the back end of the year. Ooh, that's gonna hurt. Blow the bases.
You know, these misses, they're very much product of Harefield's delivery. He's very lateral with his delivery, kind of coming across the body. So when you miss, you're going to miss either glove side or arm side. It's not going to be much so up or down. It's going to be kind of side to side.
So with the bases loaded, Jacob Cozart could build on his home run earlier today. He's back in the first inning. Uh-oh, you got to be careful leaving it up at the letters. Given the power of NC State, 2 home runs today, 16 as a club. That's top 5 in the ACC, top 25 in the country. And it must be hard as an opposing pitcher, given how powerful this offense is. You have to be precise when you nibble on the corners.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's really not getting those pitches. Even though they look really good, they're really close, almost on the black. He just hasn't been able to get those called strikes on the side.
Harefield gives up a foul ball, so he's up in the count. NC State gears up for a fellow Big South foe, Radford University, tomorrow. So from Lancers to Highlanders to NJIT Highlanders, sticking in the medieval times theme. You ever been in that medieval times restaurant, by the way? It's out in Los Angeles. You can like simulate the carnival. You have the whole.
Oh, I've seen it. Is it right off the highway?
Right off Highway 10. You sit in the wooden barns and you get to experience the jousting and all the horsebacks.
Haven't been, but that sounds actually like a lot of fun.
You dress up in medieval gear too. It's really neat. As this ball's rocketed into the gap, this has double power written all over it. 2 runs in, maybe a third, as here comes Candelaria, and the bases are cleared.
Great piece of hitting too. Ball moving away from him a little bit, kind of ran away, but he kind of went with where that pitch was, going kind of opposite way, left center. Great piece of hitting.
5 runs batted in for Cozart. Now this ball was touched. That's 370 on the line.
And especially today, you have no idea what could happen when the ball gets in the air. We didn't expect that ball was going to go out his last at bat. I was not doubting that until it hit the wall with this last hit.
Cozart had 4 RBI in his first 7 games. He's matched that and surpassed it here in his next game. There's a ton of potential. You start a true freshman behind the plate last year, and he started over 40 games. Now the full-time starter, putting in work for Elliott Avent.
And I think that gets overlooked too. I mean, as a freshman starting catcher, you hit 240 with 4 home runs. With how explosive and how over-the-top powerful NC State's lineup was last year, that tends to get overlooked at, but like that is a very, very good starting catcher as a freshman. I mean, that's really impressive. If you can hit 250, 260 as a catcher, that's all you want.
Oh my goodness. Serrano down the line. That one hops the wall. Make it 12-0. Plenty of power for Serrano. Actually, hold up. I got tricked. Cozart holds it third.
And just goes to show the power that Serrano has. That wasn't even totally squared up. That was kind of one that it looked like it was more in on the hands, and he still did some serious damage. He kind of just got his fist out there.
Watch the dugout. They're thinking home run.
Oh, yeah.
Guy standing up thinks home run, and then, wait a second. So why did Cozart not score here? That's my question.
You know, I don't think he's I don't know if this was kind of a lapse in judgment, but you might be thinking home run off the bat, which regardless, until it goes over the wall, you want to run that hard. Maybe that's what happened.
Good scoop behind the plate. And I love data, so we're going to show you some TrackMan numbers. Gosh, Cozart in that double. So we hit a 39-degree home run and a 19-degree missile that goes 373. Now the 1-0 to Nolan. Not as if you want to throw it over the zone to the power of Parker Nolan, who has 2 singles to the wall today.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the approach with this lineup becomes less and less in terms of what you have options and approach. It's going to be really difficult to get these guys out.
That running fastball catches the corner. Longwood heads to Liberty tomorrow, so back up the mountain to Lynchburg, Virginia. In a bit of a trouble here, down 11-0 in the 4th. Parker Nolan does not get cheated. When he swings the bat, it is with terrible intentions.
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, he takes a max effort swing. But he's able to do it under control and able to do it the right way. You see a lot of guys that just try and swing for the fences and they're nowhere near the ball. Their swing and misses are multiple inches.
That's a tough take to load the count.
It's a great pitch too.
If you're Dallas Hairfield, you're saying, hey, what else can I do there?
Yeah. Over the plate right there. And the catcher did a really good job, too, of trying to sell that. I mean, I'm not saying that's a ball.
As he gets a swing and a miss. And maybe that previous pitch affects Nolan there to have to chase that ball?
Yeah, I mean, because the 2-2 versus 3-2 count is a little bit different on what you have to do with a ball kind of around the plate.
So 1 out, 2 men on. Remember, Cozart did not score on the double by Serrano. So let's see if Kalai Harrison can cash him in. Would make it a Baker's dozen if he drives in 2. This might get 1. Good scoop by Dix. And no, the first baseman pulled his foot. So everyone's safe, and it's 12-0.
And that's a tough play. That's kind of a swing and bunt, shallow ground ball to your third baseman. You know, Harrison's a really fast runner. It's tough to make a play on that where you're not squaring your first baseman up.
Okay, here's my question, Sean. Error on the first baseman or the third baseman?
I'd like to see the first baseman stretch a little bit more towards second base. That would have given him the opportunity to catch the ball. I don't know how they're going to rule it.
You could rule it a single, technically. Although you're claiming if he holds his foot, he beats him.
I honestly think you can equally give Harrison that hit as putting an error on third base or first base.
So it is ruled a single to third base, which I like. You know, reward the offense for running up the line, putting an effort.
And that wasn't an obvious, like, throwing it way up the line where your first baseman has to come off. I mean, that's a tough play overall.
You can't assume the out, not routine.
Yeah.
That's a good way of summing it up. There's strike 2. Noah Souls has had a quiet stat line in this day of busy offense. 0 for 1, but 2 walks. What if I told you NC State has 43 walks to 13 strikeouts? It's 3-1. Typically it's 1-1, maybe 2-1. And now an 0-2 ground out for the second out.
And what that really speaks to in terms of what that stat speaks to is how plate disciplined this team is. They're only swinging at good strikes around the strike zone, and not just strikes around the strike zone, but strikes that they can pitches or strikes that they can actually do damage with.
And NC State is making a substitution. So Peyton Green, his night is done. And in comes Carson Falskin,
Southern California kid,
to pitch yet with a wonderful orange bat. So Falskin in Newbury Park, California. That's a beautiful place, just over the Hollywood Hills. My goodness. And he skies one 100,000 feet into the air. Dix has room, and he hangs on. Nice catch battling the sun. NC State adds 4 more. It's a 12-0 lead as we go to the 5th.
Congratulations, Maggie. You are correct. The answer is C. You are right. Home runs for the weekend. You're going to upgrade full-time prize. Congratulations. Thank you for playing. In 2006, the North Carolina Education Lottery has raised over $9.7 billion for education. Here's your all-the-right futures across the state. Those dollars stay right here, helping our students dreams come true.
Jacob Cozart having himself a day. 5 runs batted in, the home run and the RBI double. It's a breakout day for the sophomore catcher. His offense has carried the load too. 12 runs, 13 hits, and now a new pitcher, a chance to get a bunch of new bodies in there defensively here for NC State and for Longwood.
Yeah, I think Labriola definitely did his job. You know, all you need to do is be able to get through the lineup a couple times and then bridge it over your bullpen. Now it's a good opportunity for the coaching staff to see what new arms they can actually use, not just today, but kind of moving forward into the season.
So Falskin goes into short. Here's Everett Harris into pitch. As we expected, Elliot Avent to clear his bench a little bit in these midweek games, and you're up this big. 2 innings, 2 appearances for Harris. He's been nearly untouchable, just 1 hit allowed.
Yeah.
Harris will face the bottom third of the Longwood order. Ethan Barnes, who made a heck of a catch in left field back in the 2nd inning. Hits with those bright Easton batting gloves.
And this is something that I feel like if you're Longwood, you may kind of see every now and then, not consistently. You know, you got a little bit of moving 90-mile-an-hour fastball. It's got some kind of touch to it at the end.
Labriola was excellent in 4 scoreless. And how about this effort defensively? You got to love this as a pitcher.
Yeah, you got to love that, especially when you want to try and stay in this game and you have an outfielder that's willing to put his body on the line in order to get that out.
Backwards K for Everett Harris. You're right, that was a 6-0 game, and I realize things have ballooned since. But you keep it at 6, you keep your team in the game, and that's what you want.
Yeah. I mean, nothing came of it after that play, but, I mean, who's to say that there couldn't have been something else that happened after that in terms of your offense getting back into it?
So how much of that pitch is Cozart framing the strike? Because that's out of the zone. We'll talk about in a second as McLeod lines out. Because clearly Harris finds the zone, but then Cozart does his part and presents that pitch as a strike.
Yeah, I mean, what it really is, it's obviously on the pitcher to try and execute and make that as no doubt of a questionable pitch as possible, but you really want your catcher to be able to help you sell that, really.
Because right there, Cozart's picking up the frame. He's adding an inch to the pitch.
Well, you know, the further away from the strike zone, the more obvious that sell looks. So the umpire's not going to give you that. It's more of the kind of the subtle differences.
Again, example 2, he tries to earn a strike, and then he looks back to the home plate umpire, Steve Sanders, and says, well, how did I do? Like, am I close? Am I not?
And not only is he saying that to the umpire, but he's asking, hey, where's that really missing?
Whereas that pitch more obvious. Earning strikes is such a big art of baseball, as Michael Dolberry hits. Salvador Perez led the MLB last year in strike percentage he gained, as in pitches out of the zone that became strikes. Joey Bart's high on that list as well for the Giants.
And as a pitcher, you really only tend to see this with your starting pitchers that traditionally go 5+ innings. They're able to earn more strikes that are questionable as the game goes along. Once you get a new pitcher in there, they have to do that all over again.
As the count works full on Dolberry, which makes you wonder if automatic strike zones, that wouldn't be a factor 2 to 3 years from now if that becomes a thing.
Yeah, to me, with automatic strike zones, it would seem more that strikes and balls are more absolute rather than kind of that give and take with the umpire and the pitcher.
This ball's fouled off.
And that's actually the portion of it that I would prefer, why we need to have, people, calling these games rather than more of a computer.
Artificial intelligence is incredible, and John Oliver did a great skit on it last week tonight, the British comedian. But certainly artificial intelligence can't give you the extra height, little zone out and in, the up and down that you looked for.
There's so much gray area that it doesn't take into consideration and doesn't factor in.
That does miss inside, so a walk to Dolberry extends the inning. And I'm surprised you as a pitcher, you can use it in your advantage, but you want the wiggle room. I would think as a pitcher, I want my rules defined and I got to pitch to that box.
Yeah, because obviously that's what you know is going to be a strike. You know anything in that strike zone box is going to be a strike, but as you're able to prove to the umpire that you can command the strike zone, your box is essentially slowly growing and getting bigger. That umpire is going to give you a little bit more.
That ball sneaks past Cozart. So a wild pitch moves Dolberry to second.
The biggest thing right here is you had Harris that was able to get 2 quick outs. You want to try and finish this inning without turning it into any other outcome. You want to make sure that you're efficient. You don't want to let this inning get out of hand.
Top of the order for Longwood. Lancer club that entered 7th in the Big South preseason polls. There's a strike.
And I know Harris he's getting some reps in right now. He's trying to get some work in, but it's a 12-run lead. You have 2 outs. I'm really not paying as much attention to that runner on second base.
So that look to Dolberry is more of a rhythm thing than to truly keep him on.
Sure. But if you're just doing it and going through the motions just for the sake of rhythm, then I personally wouldn't do it. You want to make sure if you're going to do it, it's not just to develop a rhythm, it's just to be holding also that runner accountable.
Up and inside. We've talked about the aviator glasses of NC State. How about hitting at the plate with aviators on? Quincy Scipio here, rocking some nice shades.
I think he's doing it mainly for the swag factor.
Ooh, way up and in. Little control issues here for Harris after the first 2 outs. And on Sunday, NC State did not allow a walk. It would have been the second time all year. This game, it's perfect until this inning. And now the pitching coach comes out, Clint Chrysler.
I mean, you don't have anyone warming up in the bullpen. They're kind of moving around just to stay kind of fresh, and if their name gets called to warm up, they need to. If I'm Chrysler right now, I'm just trying to calm Harris down. I'm just making sure that he kind of collects his thoughts. He needs 1 out.
So there's John Moralia, slightly warming up. Okay, here's the question. I should know this. Is there a cell phone out there? Do they use iPhone apps? How do you send messages to a bullpen now?
When I was at State and the pens were down the line, it was walkie-talkies. I don't know if they're using the same strategy, but they're.
You could try to interfere walkie-talkie signals.
You got to make sure you're on the right channel, of course. But we had our bullpen coach or one of our student managers with the walkie-talkie, and they were going back and forth with.
You don't want to end up on the police scanner if you're on the wrong channel. You
no,
start
you
getting
don't
the traffic updates or the commuting issues around town. All jokes aside, 12-0 game, NC State here in the 5th. Pitch hitter Drew Camp up with 2 outs.
And here's another one too, just like Harefield for Longwood, you have a lot of east to west motion going on with your finish on that delivery, and what that lends itself to is misses kind of left and right. And you saw Harris kind of go closer up and in on that batter, the last batter. So that's where you see those misses with that delivery. You want to try your best to kind of finish towards the catcher, so your misses are going to be minimized as much as possible.
Everett Harris with 2 straight walks. Now can he escape the threat? That ball was hit hard, out of play.
And even though you're a new pitcher in the game and this lineup hasn't seen you for the first 4 or 5 innings, they are so far today they have been swinging early in the counts. So I mean, just throw strikes and allow them to get those outs for you.
1-2. It's a nice take by Drew Camp.
Good take, also really good miss with that pitch right there. I mean, you don't want to throw that breaking ball over the plate and let him hit.
Camp is a USC upstate transfer, and by rule in the Big South as of last year, he had to sit out a season with the intra-conference transfer rule. Now he's back in the Longwood jersey and goes down swinging. 5 scoreless innings pitching for NC State. Number 4 in ERA in the country, putting up a bunch of zeros to help the cause, and through 5 innings, the Wolfpack are cruising. It's almost 5 o'clock in Raleigh, and through 5 innings, the Wolfpack are up 12-0. Good student crowd in attendance for afternoon baseball. 7th meeting ever, Longwood and NC State. Wow, catching some sun on Avent's Army, the hill up there in left field. I got to join them next inning. You got this, right, Sean?
I'll take care of it.
Evan Budrovich, Sean Adler. And the first pitch foul ball from Matt Hevner, who pitch hits out of Lincolnton, North Carolina. The ball got stuck on top of the dugout with the wind, which has been a factor all day. The wind's been pushing out to left, making it hard for these teams to adjust. This is Hefner's second at-bat of his career.
And I would have thought actually where the wind would be making the biggest impact is actually with your infield fly balls, because it goes straight up in the air and it kind of moves around. But the infield with both teams has been able to actually make some solid plays.
Dallas Harefield back to work. And he gives up hard contact for a base hit. First career hit for Hevner, who hits the brakes. And he joins the hit parade, 15 for NC State.
You know what I love about that too is right out of the box, he's thinking too. I mean, you see the amount of space that he got after touching first base. Not that he's necessarily going to get a 2-bagger right there, but I love having that mentality, because anything could happen if the outfielder bobbles the ball, whatever it may be. If he throws it away, that's essentially an extra base right there.
Taking advantage of the pitch hit opportunity. And I misspoke. It was 14 hits for NC State. The operations crew worked the video board, Drew Grigsby, who operates the board. He's so fast that he beat me to it. And I was like, oh, wait a second, +1, -1. I don't do quick math on the fly. And now a line drive. Dom Palali blasts one to right. That is off the scoreboard. Well, the power numbers for NC State continue.
Talk about, you get in and you want to try and make an impact. He's not wasting any time. An 0-0 count, sees a fastball over the plate, up near the numbers, takes full advantage of it.
We had wondered when Dom Palali's name would be called this year, and boy, does he make an impact. Does this hit his face? Wow, hits the numbers in the 3rd inning. That ball was touched at least 380 feet, if not more. And a celebration in the dugout for NC State. Speaking of young talent, Michael Gupton, top 5 rated freshman in the state of North Carolina, rated #1 by many publications. Gupton's a strong young man as he pops this up right behind the mound. Who's got it? Second baseman's got it. There's Wilkinson. Those are never fun.
No, I mean, and not only are you having to communicate with 4 or 5 other infielders, you're also dealing with kind of that elevation difference with the mound. Sometimes you don't even notice when you're running, and all of a sudden you feel like you're going up a hill, and it totally messes with your ability to try and read that ball. Luckily, he caught that right behind home plate, but if that was 3 or 4 feet in front, I mean, that would have been a totally different outcome potentially.
Cozart, who has one of the multiple home runs for NC State. It's been power up and down this order. 3 total for the Wolfpack.
And what happened with this last pitch right here, that actually kind of goes into my argument on Cozart being extremely plate disciplined. That wasn't a strike that I necessarily would want to be swinging at. It was kind of more middle away.
He rolls into a slight shift at second, but who's going to cover first? Whoa, safe. Harefield a hair late, resulting in an infield hit.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing. That's the stuff that you work on in practice, is that when you have that kind of ball in between a couple different positions, you need to know from the get-go where your role is.
Wait a second. Did he miss the base? Because that's clearly in time. And he's looking back at his foot, too. Interesting.
I'm surprised that wasn't
Longwood's
challenged.
not electing to challenge this. So instead, an infield single, 16 hits for the Wolfpack. Oh. Gotta be careful throwing that to Eli Serrano, who had a home run on Sunday that went 400 feet.
And to speak to State's offense, what they've done today so far reminds me of what they did a couple weeks ago back against Belmont, or Wagner, I'm sorry. You have 16 hits, and out of those 16 hits, they were able to manufacture 14 runs. I mean, talk about being able to get the most out of your guys on base.
8 extra base hits for the Wolfpack, half the production. And with both teams playing midweek games tomorrow, Longwood will head back up to Virginia, taking on a good Liberty club. And NC State will face Radford out of the Big South. You do wonder how many reps, who you sub in, get different lineups the next few innings. As Serrano blasts one to the mid at first. That is not caught. Nice job to hold on it short by Cologne. I almost wonder how Thomas didn't catch that ball. It made such a nice play, but he gets the out at first.
Sometimes, I mean, reaction-wise, and that's what you have to do when you're on the corners, third base or first base, is you have to react to that. Sometimes it's not always just you see it and you catch it. Sometimes you just kind of almost body up. Not that he bodied up there, but he got his glove out and was able to stop it from going past them.
And that's Drew Camp at first. My apologies. Heck of a play. Cologne, the first-year shortstop who's back, transfer coming in. Another pitch hitter for NC State, Chase Nixon out of Wilmington, North Carolina. Chase goes after the first pitch. This should end the inning as Cologne's under it. And a nice job by the freshman of Staten Island to make the catch. NC State adds 2 more to its lead. 2 touchdowns for the Wolfpack as we go to the 6th. Welcome back to Raleigh. All NC State here in this midweek matchup. 7th all-time meeting between the Lancers and the Wolfpack. Worth noting for NC State, Kalai Harrison moves to short this inning with some of the changes. Falskin's now at second, and we're going to see Elliot Avon be like a poker player and dish out a couple of cards, move him around, see if he can double down on 11. See where he plays.
He's gonna start to utilize his bench a little bit more, right? You want to see what guys coming off your bench can kind of, hold their own and be able to play some solid defense. But also you see Harrison going and changing positions. You want to see what your current starters look like in a different role.
Remember, Harrison started 56 games at short in 21 at A&M. Only played a handful of games last year as John Moralia comes out of the NC State bullpen, the junior out of Charlotte. There's Michael Gupton in right field. A talented freshman. My apologies, Gupton's in center. So Parker Nolan gets the rest of the day off. Chase Nixon is in right. And my scorecard is officially scratched out all over the place. Good breaking ball. Did he go? He did. So Devin Cologne down via the strikeout.
I think that breaking ball comes into more of a play and is more to his advantage when you're as big as this pitcher is. I mean, he's able to kind of start that way, way, way up on the
Do you see Mark Burley vibes from John Moralia?
Looks-wise, I think a little bit. I'd say
maybe not as much the changeup.
Yeah, but definitely looks-wise. He looks a lot like Mark Burley.
A towering lefty. He's 6'5". Listed at 6'6" as well. I mean, he's got some big size.
And this is the type of with his size and like his height and the type of breaker he throws, this is a breaker that you can confidently throw into a batter. Normally, you throw this against a lefty, moving away from that lefty, but the way that this breaking ball breaks, it's so deliberate and vertical that you're able to use it effectively against a right-handed batter.
Moralia's 0-2 is lightly tapped to second. There's Falskin. And I do want to update, because Moralia's bio's changed over the years. He went from 6'6" to now 6'7" on the bio. So a late growth spurt for a talented left-hander.
A little bit late growth spurt.
I think Eli Serrano could be about 6'9" by the time he's done. He's 6'5" listed. Look at those long arms. True freshman at a Fuquay.
Not a tall team.
Number 2 prospect in North Carolina last year out of high school.
I can't remember every single pitch he's thrown so far, but I think all 7 pitches, I would argue, have been breakers.
Here's pitch 8. And the heat at 88.
different look.
I realize we're spoiled by velocity in today's baseball as Jim White hits with 2 outs. But 88 from a lefty who can throw a good breaking ball, that's still effective.
Well, and when you're as tall as he is as well, it almost looks like he's handing the ball to Kozart.
He handed it to Kozart there for a strikeout. A scoreless 6th for John Moralia. We'll go to the 7th as NC State is cruising here in midweek baseball. NC State searching for an 8-0 start to the regular season. Here's what's coming up for the Wolfpack at home. The Radford Highlanders, home of our producer, Josh Monk. His alma mater comes to town tomorrow at 3. And then NJIT out of the formerly Atlantic Sun Conference. They've bounced around a bit over the years. The Highlanders come down to take on NC State. NJIT has played Davidson, Purdue in Holly Springs, and here in Raleigh, 3 straight weeks in North Carolina.
Yeah, that's what you tend to see out of schools that are especially kind of in slightly colder weathers. Early in the season, you want to come down to kind of warmer weather states, and they're doing a good job of actually playing solid teams. You want to be battle tested before conference play.
NJIT won a series over Purdue. They're out of the America East this year, so they've bounced around conferences the last couple of seasons. Loy Hickman, the new arm for Longwood, junior college transfer, makes his first appearance against ACC foes. He has 1 outing this year. Virginia, and now NC State. So you get thrown into the fire right away if you're Chad Oxendine. Isaiah Barquette faces the submarine righty. That's a nice touch. I like it.
It's definitely a new look for NC State's offense.
It's like a power submarine, too.
Yeah.
Take a look at this, folks. He whips that arm in there.
It's interesting to see, too, because a lot of these submarine guys, not only do they operate kind of in that submarine angle, but every now and then they'll come in up top when the batter doesn't expect it. I don't know if he has that in his repertoire with his delivery, but I would not be surprised if I saw something like that.
And he whips a breaking ball that Isaiah Barquette pops into the Bermuda Triangle. What a catch! Fantastic. Scipio there to make the play. Okay, first of all, watch this delivery. So that's hard to hit, and then you take in this catch. Whew.
Right field saw that right away and was able to commit to that and obviously manufacture that out.
With all the run that this pitcher brings in Hickman, nice play by Scipio, and that's what Chad Oxendine said today. I want to know, come conference play, who's going to be in my lineup, and use a game like this to figure it out.
I mean, it's at this point in the bottom of the 6th, it's really difficult to come back from a 14-run lead, but you want to see out of your players a guy that's not going to quit. You want to be able to see a guy that's going to show you that he's going to give you his mental and physical effort innings 1 all the way to innings 9.
Tough play over the mound. Nice scoop by Cologne, and a better throw for the second out. I mean, this is great blueprint material for Longwood. You take this footage and you move it on to effort and hustle on defense.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some very solid defense that, you know, not to jinx anything, but they haven't made an error yet. You know, they've been able to.
You say that as a former pitcher,
I
right?
say that as
you
a
never
former
want to put the
pitcher.
voodoo magic out in the air.
No, but I mean, they've been able defensively to be really, really sound so far. They've made some good plays. They've caught some difficult balls.
Hard to defend an NC State offense that has 14 runs today on 16 hits. Entering the conference, Longwood picks 6th behind Campbell and Upstate. That Campbell team's made 4 straight regionals, always a talented bunch down in Bowie's Creek. And Chad Oxendine said, we got to find a way to crack into the top 4. Only 4 teams make the conference tournament. Charleston Southern, the reigning finalists last year with Coach Mark McMillan, down in the beautiful city of North Charleston. Loy Hickman looks for a 1-2-3 inning. I feel like timing is so important to Hickman's delivery. He's got to get everything aligned.
Yeah, just because it's such an unorthodox delivery, you want to make sure that you're set and that you're feeling good. You take your deep breath before you make that delivery, just because what your body's doing from there on out is totally different than if you were kind of throwing right over the top or even 3/4.
2 outs in the 6th for Matt Hevner, who had a base hit earlier today. I don't know if they saved the baseball, but it is noteworthy for Hevner, his first hit here at NC State. I assume they keep the first home run ball, maybe not the first hit. I know the big leagues, that's a big deal. I'm not sure in college baseball.
Come on, come on.
2 runs scored for Hevner. That was earlier in the game. Those aren't misses by much if you're Loy Hickman.
No, and he's the one that, in theory, has the most mechanically different type of delivery than what you've seen with the first 2 or 3 pitchers for Longwood. So he's been able to command the zone relatively decently with that delivery.
This is just fun to watch. Loy Hickman going submarine. And the flick of the wrist, like walk a flock of flame as he gives up a infield single. So Hevner, 2 hits today.
And this has got to feel good as a freshman too. You get your first amount of experience, and you know, 2 hits coming off the bench today gives you a little bit of a confidence ride.
Cologne nearly had that. Think about this, the 3rd spot in the order between Groover and Hevner have 5 hits in 6 innings. I mean, that's not a weekend. This is in half a game. So Dom Palali, who homered his last time up. He homered in his first game ever at NC State, the Charlotte transfer. Hickman flips that just low.
And, you know, I'm thinking about it, and you think you catch somewhat of a break. Most teams that you're playing, once they start to put their bench guys in, you get a little bit of a kind of a reprieve. But I mean, you talk about the depth that they have. It's not just their starting lineup; it's guys coming off the bench that do so much damage as well.
Now that's an Adam Dunn swing. They called him the Big Donkey back in his days in Cincinnati. I saw that all from Palali. 9 home runs last year at NC State. 1 hit, 1 home run for Dom this season. There's another big swing as that's out of play. And let's show you the home run from his last at bat because he crushed this baseball.
You see that kind of right up around the numbers and letters. I mean, he's got so much power. He's able, and that's absolute no doubt. Or do you see the dugout? I mean, they're tickled to death right there.
I love that tongue-of-cheek phrase, tickled to death.
That's a Southern. That's something I picked up, I feel like.
I was going to say, growing up in Los Angeles, it's a little different.
Yeah, you just say fired up, or, you know. I hear too much of that around here now.
Boom shakalaka, tickled to death. I like it. So full count here to Dom Palali. Good change up, and that ends the inning. First time tonight, NC State hasn't scored. We'll go to the 7th in a 14-0 game. Great day for baseball here in Raleigh. Perfect weather at NC State against Longwood. A little spike ball action going on in the afternoon. That's just beyond left field. Let me join in on that. A little 2v2. I got you, Sean. We're pretty athletic.
I think depending on what happens the rest of the game, they might need to move that spike ball game back a little bit. We've had some balls hit up over there.
3 home runs today is Derek Smith, the true freshman. He was one of the best pitchers in Minnesota. Number 2 overall prospect in the state of Minnesota out of high school. His brother, Dominic Smith, plays football at Augsburg University. And now Derek comes in. This is a big moment. Debut appearance. Sorry, my apologies. Second appearance. Got ahead of myself there. But now Smith looks to finish off this 7th and pick up where Harris and Labriola left off. Dom Palali will move into the outfield as Elliot Avon brings his pack of 64 Crayolas and those magic sharpeners on the back to his lineup card. Palali, Gupton, and Nixon in the outfield. Hefner and Falskin on the left side, Barquette and Serrano on the right. And Cozart, the lone man, battling this out for 7 innings. He'll stay behind the plate. As Dylan Wilkinson will lead things off for Longwood. This is the home debut for Derek Smith. That was what I was meaning to say earlier. Through one outing at Coastal last week. Better pitch that time. Wilkinson pops it up. The wind makes it tricky. There's Palali for the catch.
You know, and I would argue that a lot of, if Longwood has some hard hits against Smith, which that was just more of a routine fly ball, but if they have some pretty hard hits, I really think that Smith's supplying the power. That's some solid 2-seam run, low 90s, maybe mid 90s fastball. He's a strong kid. He's going to be able to give you a lot of velocity.
Pitch hitter for Longwood, Ethan Barnes. Good job by Smith pounding the zone. It is interesting with Coach Avon. He's used similar arms in the midweek games, Harris and Smith, in these same type of midweek matchups. This will be a bright fly ball, never easy. Ooh, good adjustment. Hefner there to make the catch. That ball always comes back to the field. Don't let it fool you.
I feel like it always has that late movement. Kind of the last 10, 15 feet that it's coming down, it gives you a little bit of a surprise.
So 2 quality outs for Derek Smith. Longwood catcher, Corbin McLeod, takes a strike. The next time you go to Farmville, Virginia, you have to go to the Fish and Pig restaurant and go to the McAdoo's. burger sandwich joint. It is fantastic. It's a Virginia staple, McAdoo's. Also in Radford as well.
So I assume fish and pig or pig and fish. I'm guessing that's seafood and maybe some
seafood barbecue combo.
Seafood barbecue combo.
A great little joint. It's about 2 miles outside of Farmville by Hampton-Sydney College, one of the oldest schools in the country. 2 universities. It was interesting because Longwood was a all-female college. Hampton-Sydney was an all-male college. And then Longwood, it was inside of 30 years ago, was co-educational, male and female. This ground ball could test short. Nice job by Falskin, and a better pick. Serrano picking it clean. Time to stretch here in Raleigh. Good defense from NC State. Results in a 1-2-3 inning. And, hold on just a second here. You know what? These coaches had talked pregame. It is officially decided. The game will end in a run rule after 7 innings. So, Sean, your final thoughts on an NC State 14-0 victory?
Yeah, okay, so I really thought that the offense was able to get as much out of they could in terms of guys getting on base and then bringing those runs in while the pitching staff held it down. They did a great job only allowing 3 hits. I thought it was an overall great job by both the offense, pitching staff, and defense.
The total game time, 1 hour, 58 minutes. As NC State in 7 innings, shortened on a run rule, wins 14-0. That'll wrap things up from Raleigh this afternoon. NC State moves to 8-0, a 3 home run day, plenty of extra base hits. Give them 8, and Longwood drops to 2-7. For Sean Adler, I'm Evan Budrovich. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Tomorrow it's NC State and Radford, but for tonight, we're boxing this one up. The Wolfpack win by 2 touchdowns. This is a presentation of ESPN.